Dilworth. I'm actually from South Ham, which is a quiet little part of South Devon, and you think a very affluent and well-off area where you wouldn't really hear of any problems. In most cases, the problems that we hear about are all in Manchester and places like that. But this is something that's affecting everyone everywhere, and that's something which I think it's helpful for me to bring here to illustrate that from other areas of the country. I'm particularly pleased to hear what you say there about the local enterprise partnerships and so forth, and your concerns over that. One of my concerns over that is how the voluntary sector were completely left out of the discussions as regards invitations to participate in the local enterprise partnerships. And I think that was a key issue. One of the areas that I want to talk about just briefly is in terms of these funding issues, what we have, I think, is a real mixed up understanding over what is general advice and what is specialist advice. And let me make it clear that in CAB and in the law centres and in all sorts of other advice delivery models, we do specialist advice. I think it's a political, if I may say so, I'll probably get in trouble for saying that, it's a convenience to say that this is basic advice. It's not. When clients come to me from the General Bureau, that's how their files start off. I haven't got a file here to show how they end up, but I can assure you it's nothing like that. On Friday, I had actually went to a tribunal, second time around, we're not funded to do this. That case is immensely complicated. It involves a considerable amount of overpaid benefits, and the client has a dispute against that, and I think quite a just dispute. It involves incredibly complicated areas of social security law. I think there is a complete myth about the fact that we are non-lawyers and therefore we don't do special. We do. We are very, very familiar, having worked with this for many, many years, about what specialist advice entails. I believe that we are best placed to provide that in the legal aid system, and I think it is absolutely crucial that in all of these funding debates, that although we talk about alternatives, although we talk about different models, although we talk about, let's modernise things and so forth, let's not lose track of what this is all about as far as legal aid is concerned. They are special cases for people that have specialist problems requiring specialist advice. If that is not continued as a statutory funding source, what on earth will replace it? Because I think if you leave it to something at a local level, the alternative will never happen. It may perhaps for a year or something, but beyond that, it will get lost. Where you have a statutory source of funding, I think that what will happen is that you ensure that it remains. I think that's probably what I'm particularly passionate about that, because this is the work that I do, day in and day out. I do believe, I'm going to pick up on one point here, that in terms of outcome recording for some of the work that we do, I'd noticed and come across a debate on Hansard, and follow Hansard a lot. And on that, I was quite disappointed to note how some of the outcome recordings that have been fed back from the Legal Services Commission were actually quite negative about some of the work that we do. The outcome recording that we do is actually a lot more positive than has been spoken about, as far as I'm aware, in Parliament so far. But I think that we do definitely need to do something to up the message about the degree of specialism that we do, and also the very positive, not simplistic, examples of good outcome that we achieve. I just want to say one final thing, and that's on liberty, because it has been left out so far that there is no impact upon the liberty of an individual. I know there's a generalised argument for that, because we could say, well, losing their benefits and so forth can potentially affect their liberty. There is an impact on their liberty. I have cases, and I quite often deal in benefit fraud related cases, where I will deal with the social security element of their overpayments and so forth. I've one of those cases where the alleged fraud was said to be £51,000. The client was sentenced on the basis of £51,000. It's a shame that his appeal wasn't heard before he was sentenced. The judge in Crown Court sentenced him on the basis of that £51,000 figure. And he actually served a sentence, believe it or not, quite happily for that, because he put his hands up and he said, okay, you know, I've done wrong and so forth. But what he always disputed was the amount. And he came to us about that. We couldn't deal with that amount until he came out of prison. And then we took up his appeal and we followed it on. The result of that was that his overpayment was reduced from £51,000 to just a little bit over £23,000. My point there is that had that been known at the time that the Crown Court judge was imposing sentence, what would have happened? And equally, there are other cases where there have been acquittals in terms of benefit fraud. So I think to say that there's no impact as far as that particular part's concerned, I think is extremely dangerous. And to exclude welfare benefits from scope entirely, I have to say, is ludicrous.